Today's daf is Daf Lamed in K'tubos of Gimel for Forshlim V'Yosef Ashriel Ben Chaim Michal and Allah Ben Ruma. Yesterday we got down to the sixth line on the page, line number 6 at the end of the line. Amar Rav Chisda Hakamor. Yesterday we had our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had said that even though you commit a terrible sin by raping, let's give the extreme example: a person raped his sister. Even though he raped his sister and he's chayiv kares for that, he's not chayiv misas bezin. Misas bezin, according to our Mishnah, is the only thing that absolves you with kamei rame from payment. From payment, if you're chayiv misas bezin, even if you don't actually get it carried out, but you do a sin which you're chayiv misas bezin for, like eishes, like committing adultery, or some other capital crime that you're punished by bezin, then you're absolved from paying. But over here, when you rape your sister, since you're not getting punished by Bezdin, but rather by God with kares, our Mishnah held that Kamei Rame does not apply, and that even though God will get you for this, you still have to pay the father of the girl the 50 shekels. That's what our Mishnah had said. And then we saw a shita in the Gemara that we said our Mishnah does not go like the Brisa, which quotes Shimon HaTamana and Shimon Asya, which says that there's a different problem over here. The only way you have to pay the money and fulfill the obligation of making up for what you've done, if that's considered making up. The Torah says pay the 50 shekels only if you can fulfill the lo isha. The pasuk, as opposed to we mentioned, Mefata also pays 50 shekels, but Mefata is only if she doesn't want to, if the father doesn't want to marry her off, or you don't want to marry the girl. In the case of onus, you're required to marry the girl and never to divorce her. Okay, so, but if you can't marry the girl, if she's your sister, so if you can't fulfill lo isha, you can't fulfill, the rules of the rape don't apply, and you don't pay 50 shekels. So the other Brisa quoted Shimon HaTamani yesterday and Shimon ben Menasya, who said, Isha shiesha lapuk me'aitana the Tanya below isha, Shimon HaTamani Isha shayesh b'havaya, somebody that kedushin is chal with. Shimon Menasya said Isha ru'ila kaima, and we said there's a difference between them, a mana l'kohen gadol, or even at the end we came out and a mana to a ba'ula to a kohen gadol, where she's still technically a psula, but as far as the kohen gadol is going, she's a ba'ula, so therefore he's over on that asay, and it's an esashain of shavakol. So there's enough nafkamina between isha ru'ila kaima versus lo siyah isha. Lo siyah isha, marriage would be chal there. Marriage would be chal, but even according to Rabbi Akiva, marriage would be chal there. But she's not royal kaim. You're not supposed to be married to a woman like that. Even the kohen gadol should not. So we said there's enough community there, but everybody holds. Our Mishnah Gemara says now in the 6th line on Daf Lamed Avaral, or if it's the Hakol modem, everybody's modem, whether it's our Mishnah who says you have to pay the 50 shekels even if you rape your sister, or the other Brisa which says you don't pay the 50 shekels if you rape your sister because either Kedushin's not chal, or she's not, you can't maintain her as a wife. She's not royally fit to be married. She's not fit to be married to you. Either way, however you learn, everybody's moda. That's when it comes to, let's say, chorus. When it comes to like not just one chorus. When it comes to like a chorus for marrying your sister, living with your sister, our Mishnah says you pay the 50 shekels. The other Brisa says you don't pay the 50 shekels. But everybody agrees. Let's say you sleep with a nida. We sleep with a nida that's also chayiv kares, whether it's your wife or anybody else. Still, you pay b'shalom knas. If you rape a girl who happens to be a nida at the time, she's, let's say, between 12 and 12 and a half, according to our Mishnah, according to the Rabbanan, the chiyuv of rape is even down to the age of 3. We mentioned yesterday, from 3 till 12 and a half. But if you rape a girl between 3 and 12 and a half, or 12 to 12 and a half, according to everybody, and she's a nida at the time, you have to pay the 50 shekels. Your chayiv kares. Your chayiv kares says everybody's motive that you pay. Why? Even the one who says that it's somebody who you have to be able to marry. You can marry a woman who's a nida. You're just not supposed to sleep with her, but you can marry her. All women become nidas at points in their lives. You can marry her. Also, in other words, not only is marriage chal, you could have a chuppah nida. A woman could go to the chuppah many times. When people go to the chuppah and they're a nida, they can't. The husband cannot consummate the marriage that night. She's a nida. You have to wait till she's purified. So you can marry her, and it's royal kaima. So according to everybody, whether it's our Mishnah or the Brisa yesterday, who says that in the case where you can't stay married to her, you can't marry her, you can't stay married to her. In those cases, it doesn't apply. The rules of raping and 50 shekels don't apply here. It does apply. according to everybody so far, our Mishnah and the Bryce we mentioned yesterday. However, our Mishnah, which talks about raping, let's say your sister, and you have to pay the 50 shekels, but not a case of capital punishment, because raping your sister only involves chorus, that excludes the Puke Rav Chunakana. That excludes Rav Chunakana. In other words, this differs from Chunakana. Rav Chunakana says that the rules of Kamar Rabbaneh apply not only when there's capital punishment, even when there's Misa B'dei Shemayim, even when there's chorus. When I just said Misa B'dei Shemayim, I should say chorus specifically, because there's going to be a machlokus about that, whether it applies only by chorus or even by Misa B'dei Shemayim, which are two different things. The Tanya. On Yom Kippur, everything which is also on Shabbos is also on Yom Kippur. All the malachas are also. In fact, Yom Kippur, we have additional things you can't eat. It's actually have to, other Isurim also apply. But everything which is also on Shabbos is also on Yom HaKadosh, Yom Kippur. But there's a major difference between them, that if you're over on Shabbos, the native in Hasra, you're chayiv misas besdin. If you're over without native Hasra, you're going to get chorus. As we said, shogeg chayiv chatos. Out without a Misra, you got a chorus. Native Hasra, you got to get misas b'shemaim. Yom Kippur, if you're over on, you don't get Misa B'dei Bezdin. There is no rules of Misa's Bezdin when it comes to Yom Kippur. Whatever you're chayiv on Shabbos for, Misa's Bezdin, if it's Ein Masra on Yom Kippur, it's only chorus. So Rav Chunakana says the same rules though apply. Kamar Rabbaneh, he made Yom Kippur like Shabbos with Tashlumin. Just Mas Shabbos Mischayiv Benafsho Pat Mashlumin. On Shabbos, if you did if you committed a malacha on Shabbos and you're chayiv misa for that, you don't have to pay. Famous case is, you throw a knife. We'll mention it later today. Throw a knife across the street, so you're chayiv for taking something from rishus to rishus or dalad amas b'rishus rabim. It's also a doraisa, and in the process you cut somebody's shirt. You went right through somebody's shirt. Do you have to pay for the shirt? No, because since you're chayiv misa spezin, you don't have to pay for the shirt. Kamlev Ramine. Af Yom Kippurim also was chayiv benafsho, even though the chayiv benafsho is not over here in Bezdin, but it's only Kamashem, Chorus, also Patman Ashlumin. So Rav Meir Shapiro differs from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, according to Rav Meir Shapiro, all the cases, all the latter case of the Mishnah where you're chayiv Chorus, you wouldn't have to pay the 50 shekels, because he says Kamlev Ramine applies even when it's Misa from Hashem. My time Rav Meir Shapiro, what's his svara? What's his reasoning? So two reasons are brought down in the Gemara: Abaya and Rava. My time Rav Meir Shapiro, Abaya. Abaya's like this. Never awesome b'dei adam. It says awesome b'dei adam. What does it say, Michael? It says two guys are fighting. And then his fist went and hit the other and hit the lady and caused her to have a miscarriage, right? So, but it says over there, below yasam, if he doesn't kill her, nobody is killed. Then it says anoshi, she must have to pay for the v'nasam, he has to pay for the damage that he's done. So it says over there, ason, that ason we talk about b'dei adam, when a person kills somebody else. The number of some b'dei shemayim. It also says, where does it say ason? Ason always, even in modern Hebrew, ason means a tragic accident where there's a death involved. When somebody nicked their finger, they don't call that ason. Ason means somebody's dead. So it says, the number of ason b'dei shemayim. Where does it say that? When Yaakov's sons were saying, we got to take Binyamin back to Egypt, that's the only way we're going to get our other brother out and all that. What did he say? He said, "B'karo ason, don't. We already lost one. You're going to take him b'karo ason baderach, and he's going to have an accident on the way, and you're going to cause me to die. Right? And I'll go down to my grave, in mourning." They are going sha'ola, correct? So ason b'dei shemayim. So ma ason omer b'dei adam patim et shlumin. What are we speaking of there? Ason b'dei adam, where a guy killed somebody else, and therefore he's chayiv bezdin. Right, Rashi says, "Somebody adam below yason the b'shtoy b'misas bezdin l'neimer the heichad deleka misas bezdin sham mei blodos." But where there's misas bezdin involved, that also talking about misas bezdin. Not just the ason that he killed the person, but the ason that he's going to be killed. There's misas bezdin involved. Just like ma ason b'dei adam put you from pain, come to Rabbaneh. Af ason b'dei shemayim put menashlumin. This is the source of come to Rabbaneh. It says below yason. If nobody's killed, then you pay. But if there's an ason and you killed him and there's a misas bezdin, you're chayiv misa for killing somebody, then you don't pay. So he says the same thing. It says ason twice, once b'dei adam, once b'dei shemayim. Af ason b'dei shemayim also part of dashlom, and that's from Mechuni's Rush according to Abaye. Now notice that when you say ason means there's a death involved, right? There's a death involved. You might die. It doesn't say if the death involves whether it's whether the punishment for that would be Misa B'dei Shemayim or Misa B'dei Adam, because here we're talking about, there's an accident involved. Now, Maskara Bada Barava, we're assuming now that when Yaakov warned his sons, he's going to go on the road and there'll be an accident and you're going to bring me down to an early grave, right? That's what he said. So how do you Maskara Bada, how do you Mimaydechi Kamazar Yaakov when Yaakov was Lebaneh, when he was warning his sons, Altsinim and Pachim, how do you know he was warning them about, what we call natural accidents? Like there might be a tornado. Tzinim Apachim means cold and heat, meaning the weather elements. How do you know that he's warning about something? Maybe somebody let loose a wild animal like a lion, or Ganavim came and killed him. In other words, how do you know that we said, it says Asam B'dei Adam, if two guys were fighting and one guy killed the other guy, if he killed him, he says Bezin. If he didn't kill him, he pays. Fine. Come to Rav Meir. And then it says, Asam B'dei Shemayim, when Yaakov warned his sons, the Karoa's son, an accident's going to happen. How do you know he meant an accident that's like a natural accident, what we call an act of God, right? How do you know it means that? Maybe it means something that's somebody will kill them on the road. There'll be bandits, or there'll be people who will let their wild animals go out caused by them. So the Gemara says, Ata Yaakov, Aha Azar, Aha Lo Azar. You think he warned him only about this? He says, something's going to happen on the road. I don't know what it's going to be. A drunk driver, a drunk camel driver. They probably had drunk camel drivers in those days too that caused accidents, right? Don't drink and drive your camel at the same time, right? Whatever they had there, he was warning about everything. Ata Yaakov Azar, Aha Lo Azar, Yaakov Kol Miliazar. He warned him about everything. So therefore, everything it means includes not only Asam B'dei Adam, like a ganef or something like that, but he warned him also about natural disasters. Maybe something's going to happen on the road. There'll be a rainstorm, there'll be a flood, who knows what, right? Hail, whatever. So he warned him about that too. And therefore, that ason can mean anything. And therefore, that's a yeah. So very good. So a lion would be considered maybe if somebody let him out. We're going to talk now about these things. Very good. So we're going to talk about these things now. Abai has given his reasoning. What's Mechun Merkaz's reasoning? He learns that ason. Just like this, there's a Xerish of ason, just like ason by Adam, where one person killed another person and he has to go for a capital case in court. They're patur from Tashlum. And the same thing, if it's an ason b'dei Shemayim, right? There's some natural disaster or an act of God. We say the same idea that he doesn't have to make any payment, even though the ason is not like, we're not talking about God causing. We're talking about there's a judgment of ason, right? When you kill somebody, so there's a judgment of Mises Bezdin. It's the same way when there's Misa B'dei Shemayim, we have the same rule applies that you don't have to pay. Come to Rav Meir. Now the Gemara is going to deal with Michael's question. Let's understand something. Is the weather, sure, the weather is caused by God. But if you are injured by the weather, they have these people who run after tornadoes. They had one movie about that once, the people, when there's a tornado in Kansas, they quickly run there to take pictures and all that. They want to be involved. There's crazy people out there, right? So would you say that, you go to a tornado area, expecting tornadoes, and you go there, you want to see the tornado and film it and make a movie about it, and you get killed in the process. Will you say that God killed you, or you're an idiot and killed yourself? So that's what Gemara says. But Sinam and Pachim, let's understand this difference between Sinam and Pachim on one hand and Ganavim and lions on the other hand. So he says, but Sinam Pachim b'dei Shemayim, everything that happens to you happens from God, except for cold weather, cold or hot weather, because you could protect yourself from that. The pasuk says, cold and hot is on the road on the crooked road. A person who takes care of himself and guards himself from it, he'll stay away from that. What are you going into a dangerous zone for? It's like saying if you go into, let's say there's a dangerous neighborhood to go to, right? People are getting killed there all the time, like I don't know, Chicago or Janine or someplace like that, or someplace. You go to somebody. If you go there, there's a good chance. There's a better chance that you're going to get hurt than if you stayed home. So that's not Meir Shapiro. You did it to yourself. Basu, and the other way, Ari began. You think that a lion or even a ganef is only b'dei Adam? If a person is killed by a ganef, you think that's something that's based on human control? God sent the guy. God sent the lion, and God sent even the ganef. How do you know? Rav Yosef, from the time Beis Mikdash was destroyed, Pashim say it was really could be before the Beis Mikdash was destroyed or maybe afterwards because there was different times. But certainly Yom Shechal Beis Mikdash, Afal Pisha Bitlu Sanhedrin, even though there's no more Sanhedrin, so they couldn't exercise capital punishment. Arba Misas Lo Batlu, the four kinds of death of Skila, Sreif, Herod, and Chenek were not batlu, were not voided, did not cease. What do you mean Lo Batlu? What do you mean they weren't batlu? Habatlu doesn't stop performing these methods of capital punishment. Habatlu. Ella, he says like this, Din Arba Misas Lo Batlu. The Rashi says the onish stigmasim, the kind of punishment that's involved with the four Mises Besin, Skilus, Reva, and Chenek, were still common afterwards, even though it wasn't executed by the Besin. But God sent it down. What does that mean? If a guy's chayiv Mises, God will get him. Let's say a person's chayiv skila, he did some act, that's a morer, or he did slept with a nara morasa, an engaged girl, chayiv skila there. No Feldman. So what happens? By skila, what do? They first push him off the second floor, right? They take him up, push him off the second floor, and then they put stones on him. It's not the stones that kill him, it's the drop that kills him, and then they put a stone on him. So it's chayiv skila. No, from a guy, he falls off a roof. Chayiv also. When a guy falls off a roof, or one of the construction sites in Tel Aviv, from the 40th floor, probably was chayiv skila for something, right? Chayiv also, or he's trod upon by an animal knocks him down. In other words, he's thrown down to the ground. Misha's chayiv sreifa, chayiv sreifa. No, for like he's burned up in a fire. Nochesh machisha, or a snake bites him, and the venom of the snake is like burning him up inside. Because sreifa doesn't mean we don't burn at the stake. The sreifa of bezin, remember we learned it's sreifa from within the body. So again, he's chayiv sreifa. He's got this kind of stuff. Misha's chayiv sreifa, the chayiv misa sayif. Nimsul he's either given over to the Goyish kings where they used to decapitate them like you think it was just invented now by the Daesh and those guys, the ISIS, they give him machs. Listen, Barnala, or bandits come and kill him. That's the thing. The point is, when bandits come and kill him, it's not like, it was bidei adam. Hashem sent them too. Umisha was chayiv chenek, chayiv to be strangled. Otaveh benar, he drowns. Omeis b'sunuchi, he drives with surunchi, which is a kind of a disease which constricts the throat so that he's basically he can't breathe. So you see that these things happen even bisman hazeh. And so you see that the lion comes out or a ganav comes out, that's not necessarily bidei adam, like, it was between you and this other guy. God sent him. Ella Eipach, turn it around. Ari V'Gandhi. This is all just to talk about those instances of death, but Abai has made his point already. It's for the reason of the Chana. Ella Eipach. Ari V'Gandhi B'dei Shemayim. That's B'dei Shemayim. If a lion eats him up, that's B'dei Shemayim. This answers your problem with the lion, right? If a lion came and ate him up, it got some. The same thing with the Ganav. Ganav was sent by God. But if it's cold or heat, that's his own shit, it's his own negligence. You could have been called, put on a sweater, go to or turn the air conditioning on, or go to some place where you're not going to be affected by the weather. Okay, so that's just as far as the technicalities there. But the point is, Yaakov warned all his sons, there's going to be might be an accident on the road, whether it's bidei adam or bidei shemayim. So you see, there's no difference between Shemayim and there's us and us. And so we learn out, that's what Chumnikas Rush, according to Abaye, that the concept of Kama Ravni applies whether the greater punishment which absolves him of payment is Bezdin or Min HaShemayim. That's one reason.
God was not simple to understand. It's not from God. Everything's from God.
The weather is.
It's not
the weather is, but the weather is.
People are dying.
The weather.
God's involved.
No. There are cases when a person commits suicide. What is that? That's God's. Yeah, but it's his own choice. The pasuk says. The pasuk says you could. The pasuk says shomer nafsho yerachik mehem. If you want, guard yourself from that. Don't go and don't do dangerous things. If a person does,
because and God wasn't involved.
God's always involved. That's the story with That's the guy with the flood. That's the old silly story with the flood. And he was waiting on the roof, and they sent him. They sent the boat, and he says, "I'm waiting for God." They sent the helicopter waiting for God, and then he drowned. He says, "I was waiting for God." The answer is it's his own fault. There are people who do it. By the way, at the beginning of the corona, Rav Shapiro gave a shiur on your responsibility. If you have corona and people were dying then before vaccines, and when it was really the first phase, when everybody was dying from that, they said, "What's your responsibility if you infect somebody else?" People have to be careful.
Intervene with God, but But to say that God's not involved in death, all these kids who die when they go into Shiur, right? These, it happens every year.
Right. Yeah, good, but I'm just saying,
God's
no.
not involved in that?
Of course, God's involved in all deaths, but a person can kill himself. In other words,
Make it happen.
okay, good. So, would you argue in the courts now when the leaders of the schools and the Tiyulim and all they're being taken to court? God killed them, not me. Is that what is that a valid argument? Of course not. Of course not. No. That's not life. That's negligence. Negligence. Rashi calls it pshia. It's pshia. If you go into a place like that, they knew that there's going to be big floods. And they said, well, I got a job to do. I'm going to take the kids out. That's their responsibility. That's pshia. That's negligence. You can't blame that on God. It's just like you can't blame suicide on God. Yeah, you can say suicide because the guy's crazy. Okay, but he killed himself. Okay, you could argue all that. Rav Amar Taima Rav says different reason. Why does Nechemia kind of say that even Misa from God also, if you chayiv Misa min Hashemayim, you're also potter from pain? Plus, like this. There's an issue in the Torah. One of the kinds of avodah zarah is molach. Molach was where people sacrifice their children. So it says if people do molach, they're chayiv Misa for that. You got to take them to court, capital punishment. You warn them, etc. You're chayiv. It's a kind of avodah zarah. You kill them for that. If the people don't take care of it, Bezdin basically doesn't bring them to court. They don't bring the prosecution and kill him. People hide. In other words, the court doesn't do anything about it. There's no court, or they don't want to look at it. They don't deal with him. Then God says, I'll take care of it. If you don't take care of him, I will. Uva mishpachto and his family, and I will cut him off. That's chorus. Amr Torah, the Torah says, like Rashi says, one is a chilufim for the other one. Vasamti anias panai, lamadu says Rashi says it beautifully, shahakaris b'moka misa v'chilufa. Chorus takes place. If you're not going to kill him in Bezdin, you're not going to take care of this avodah zarah act, this molach. I don't know what that's called in English, the molach or whatever, the molach. Yeah, molach. They take him. They kill us. You're not going to kill this guy for killing his children, for serving. They serve the God by sacrificing their children, their God, small g. If you're not going to do it, then I'll do it. I'm going to take chorus. In other words, to say that my chorus is the equivalent of your misa's best. If you're not going to kill him, I'm going to kill him. Chorus is about their children, about them and their children. Not just about Olam Haba, it's about them and their children. Presumably, the chorus will be Machaperim on Olam Haba. The only time we say that they lose the Olam Haba is by Shil Hashem. But for chorus, the difference between chorus and Misa B'dei Shemayim is that chorus affects the children as well. So Amar Torah chorus sheli k'misa shalachem ma misa shalachem pat mashlim. So Hashem is comparing the two. That's what Rabbi says. Why does he learn out that Misa B'dei Shemayim is like Misa's Bezin for Kama Rabbineh, just like your Misa, if you're Chai Misa, you're Patman Shlomin. Avkarshali also Patman Shlomin. My Ika ben Rabba Labai. Okay, so we gave two reasons for Rav Chanan clearly says that if you're Chayav Karis B'dei Shemayim, you're also Patur from payment. What's the difference between Rabba and Abaya's reasoning? Abaya, who learned it out from Ason, or Rabba learned it out from Molach. Ika benayu Zar Shachal Truma. Listen to this: if a Zar, a non-Kohen, like most of us, non-Kohen. If we stole truma from somebody and ate it, what's the punishment for a zar eating truma? Not karis, misa b'dei shemayim. Misa b'dei shemayim. The difference is that karis means his children will be cut off, his children will die. Zar, misa b'dei shemayim doesn't affect the children. So zar shachal truma. La Abaye pater. Abaye learned that out from asan. Asan means any death, any kind of a death, however the person's going to die, right? Like we saw Yaakov warn them, however they're going to die. So Abaya says any kind of a death, b'dei shemayim, whether it's this kind of a death, karis or whatever, any kind of a death is learned out from Asan b'dei Adam. Fatmena Tashlum come the Rav Minei. Rava learns it out from this pasuk of Molach. He said, what did I say? Hashem said, if you don't kill him, hichrati, I will give him karis. So it only applies to karis, not to zar shachal truma. So according to Abaye, if a zar ate truma, he's chayv b'dei shemayim, he wouldn't have to pay. In other words, if he stole somebody's truma, the guy stole his truma and he ate it because he stole the truma. Because he's chayiv misa for eating the truma, he doesn't have to pay. Doesn't have to pay the Kohen for stealing it from him. Doesn't have to pay for it. According to Rava, though, he would have to pay. Why? Because Rava says that the only time the Chun says that Kaman Ramane applies to misa from God is only if it's kares. because he learns out from Molech where he says Yechrati only chorus, but if it's Misirei Shemayim, that would not absolve the payment. So according to Rabbi, you'd still be chayiv to pay, even though you're chayiv misa if you ate somebody else's truma. And according to Abaya, you wouldn't have to pay for the truma. So now the Gemara says, wait a minute, if you stole truma and then you ate it, why wouldn't you have to pay for the truma? Those two things are not said. Come to Raminez, while the guy threw the knife on Shabbos across the street, it tore the shirt. It was the same act. But over here, Abaya Potter. According to Abaya, you would say Potter because Potter from payment because by Azar who ate truma. Even the Mechani says that when God kills the person, when it's chayiv misa from Hashem, you don't have to pay. But he's moda begonim chelbo shel chaver. Even in case of chorus, eating chaylev, if you do it on purpose, you're chayiv chorus. Right? Even if Rechim says if you chayiv chorus, you're put from payment. But let's say you stole somebody's chaylev, somebody's fat from his animal, but achlo and you ate it. Shu chayiv, you have to pay for it. Shikfar nes chayiv begeneva kodim shebal yisur chaylev. You're chayiv for the geneva as soon as you stole it. Right? That's one act. Then afterwards you ate it. You're chayiv me chorus, but when you stole it, the two things are not simultaneous. Alma, the meidna the agbe. As soon as you picked it up, I went into the guy's farm and I stole some chaylev from his animal there, whatever that he had already shechted the animal. As soon as I picked it up, you were konit, and therefore you have to pay for it. It's chayiv benafshe. When are you chayiv misa? When are you chayiv chorus rather? Only when you ate it. That's when you chayiv chorus. You're not chayiv chorus just for owning chaylev, right? Everybody owns chaylev. If they own an animal, you're chayiv when you ate it. So hachanami. So even the Rav Kodesh modo, but you have to pay if it's not simultaneously. Hachanami. If it's not simultaneous. Hachanami beidna da'agbe. Over here also, when you picked up the truma, the Yisrael took the truma from a coin, presumably, well, we're going to come to an answer about that too, but let's say he stole the truma from a coin, or he bought it from him. He bought it from the coin, whatever. So let's say he bought it. He said, I got a grandson who's a coin. You got some truma over here? See, because when you have your own farm and you mafresh the truma, it doesn't belong to you. You have to give it to the coin. So you gave it to a coin. Now you say to the coin, you know what? I got a grandson who's a coin also. Let me buy it back from you at a reduced price and I'll give him some. So you bought it legitimately, whether you stole it or you didn't steal it, but you were konit, right? If you stole it, you were konit when you picked it up. You're only chayiv for misa when you ate it. So here also, as soon as you picked it up, you were konit the truma. Until you ate it. So if you're chayiv for paying for it, let's say you stole it, you're only chayiv later on. So you have to pay. So how can you say, according to Abaye, it learns out from Asa and Asa, it doesn't make any difference if it's Kares or if it's Misbei Shemayim. You're chayiv, you're always potter. If you're chayiv Misa in any form, you're potter from payment. What are you talking about? You're chayiv to pay because you stole it now. You're chayiv Misa for an act that you did a day later or an hour later or 2 minutes later. Okay, we're trying now to show how is it possible that you're potter from paying for the truma? Because you didn't pick up the truma now and eat it 5 minutes later. Somebody stuck the truma into your mouth against your will. The guy stuck some truma. He took a stick and he put the truma in your mouth. And therefore, when you chayiv misa for eating it now, and that's the same time when you acquired it. So you chayiv to pay for it because he stuck it in your mouth and you were eating it, so you have to pay for it. And you chayiv misa at the same time. That's what you would be potter kamlam rabbi, according to Abaye in Churi Manakana. So self-kim the law say Kanya. Understand? Still, there's a difference. When are you chayiv for stealing it, right? For stealing it, for paying for it. As soon as you started chewing it, once you chew it, nobody wants truma that's an ABC, right? Already been chewed. Nobody wants that, right? So you can't give it back. Once you stay, you'll require it then. Mischayiv and Nafshalav, you had the bottle, you only chayiv, and when you swallow it, Rashi explains that somebody stuck it in your mouth, you didn't even do it willingly, but what do you have to pay? You don't have to pay for the full price, you have to pay for, you still filled up your stomach, you didn't have to pay for lunch, it's a reduced price, let's say, but you're only chayiv then when you swallowed it. When you swallowed it is when you're chayiv misa, because at that point you ate it, but you already acquired it even a couple of seconds before. The guy stuck it all the way down his throat. He stuck it down his throat, so there was no chewing involved. So you must understand. What do you mean he stuck it in his throat? If he could cough it back up, he stuck it down the throat. If he can cough it back up, so cough it back up. If he didn't cough it back up, then he stole it, right? If it's so far down your throat that you can't cough it back up, then why are you chayiv at all for stealing? All right, it's an onus. The guy stuck it down your throat. I didn't steal it. He stole it. he could cough it back up with great effort. With great effort, he might be able to stick it back up. So in that case, it's a weird case. It's a weird case, as we're going to see in a second. It's a weird case. So how are you putter because of the Misa B'dei Shamayim? Since you're Chayiv Misa B'dei Shamayim, you're putter. How are you putter? Because he stole before. The answer is the guy stuck it down your throat, and you could only get it back al yidei chak. So it's not really an onus. You could get it back up. But the point is, you swallowed it. You swallowed it. So the Chiyav Misa and the Chiyav for paying is the exact same split second. This is a doch answer. Or Papa says, what do you have to come onto that for? Stuck it down the throat. Truma could even be what? The when you chayiv trumas and ma'aser mineral rice, we discussed many times, the 5 grains or oil or wine that grew in Eretz Yisrael. So he says, guy stuck some, gave you a drink. Guy opened your mouth and stuck some truma wine in your mouth. As soon as you put it in your mouth, it's already mias. You can't give it back now. So so you didn't have to swallow, you didn't have to chew it or anything like that. He stuck it into your mouth. Rashi says, it's a doch against the guy stuck it down your throat. As soon as he gave you a drink in your mouth, it's mias, so you can't give it back. And you're not chayav because it's zayla, the lechazim midi, because it's not good for anything. Elanas, you're only chayav when for the hana in your throat for drinking it. So machayev misa v'tashum you're not chayav zayla per se, but you did have enough from it, so you have to return. You have to return what you took, and the chayav misa came at the same split second. Okay, so that's another answer. It's possible to show that the chayav for payment and the chayav for Misa's Besin came at the same split second, and that's why you're parted from payment because it came at the same time. According to the Chum. Again, according to our Mishnah, a chiv of kares would not absolve you, right? Unless or even Mrs. Besin certainly would not absolve you for payment because you don't say Kama Rabine unless it's Mrs. Besin. Rav Shapiro, we didn't talk about, I mentioned it quickly yesterday, but Malchus, what about Chiv Malchus? We're talking about our mission where there was no, I was going to say later on, where there was no Hasra. Because if there was Hasra, even for your sister, or Chiv Kares, you Chayiv Malchus for that too. And Chayiv Malchus, you don't give Malchus and pay too. So our mission is speaking about where there's no Hasra for Malchus. Rav Shapiro made a very simple answer. He ate his own truma. He didn't steal it. What do you say? I should be Chayiv. How could you be Chayiv? How could you say, come Rabine, you're Chayiv for stealing it before, and then you ate it. You have to come on to these weird answers about, no, it was in your throat, the guy stuck in your throat, it happened at the same split second. No, I ate my own truma. I bought it from somebody, or he gave it to me. So what's the Kamar Rami over here? At the same split second, while I was eating, listen to this, while I was eating truma, I'm a czar, and I'm eating truma, chayiv misa's bestin for that, right? Misa, not misa, but misa shemayim, chayiv misa shemayim for eating truma. In the same split second, I tore somebody's garment, somebody's silk garment. So that's so it's not the same person. It says Rashi, the top line, while he swallowed the truma, while the Yisrael swallowed the truma, he also damaged somebody else's property. It's not because of the moan of the guy, the misa has nothing to do with the guy's shirt. In other words, if you're chayav misa for doing one thing, right? For eating truma, or for being over on Shabbos, for that matter, throwing a rock on Shabbos or a stone or a knife on Shabbos, and you damage somebody else's property, you don't have to pay for the property. It doesn't mean that mina shamayim, you're not really yotze, because the idea is you come to Rabbi Bezin can't force you to pay. But technically, that guy lost his shirt. What does that have to do with you? Technically, before we learn Baba Kama, we see that to be yotze, you should really pay for the shirt. But your part of Bezin can't make you pay for it. So that's his answer. How we come on to this thing. Still. Let's before we finish this. So what do we say? Rav kind of says that your Kamar absolves you of payment even when it's Misa from Hashem. According to Rava, it's only if it's Koros from Hashem. Otherwise you're still chayiv to pay, like our Mishnah would say. Mishnah holds that Misa B'Shemaim, any kind of Misa B'Shemaim does not absolve you from payment, right? So Rava would say only Koros, not Misa B'Shemaim. Whereas Baya says, according to B'chim and Akana, whether it's Misa B'Shemaim or Koros, you're absolved. Kufa Amar of Chista, on top of the page. Moda of B'chim and Akana, begun of Cheloshin. We just had this case. B'chim is Moda, even though he says that Kamla Ramine applies even by Misa B'Shemaim. or Karis, let's say Karis according to Abai or Rabba, even according to Rabba, that Karis absolves you from payment. But he's moda if you stole somebody's chaylev, which happened first, and then you ate it, you're chayiv to pay for the chaylev. Before you ate the chaylev, you stole it 5 minutes before, 5 years before. You stole it before. That the two things are separate acts. Lema, Rav Abin. This disagrees with Rav Abin. Who's Rav? Rav Abin says, listen to this case. That's the case on Shabbos. Hazarik ches. If you throw an arrow or a knife, whatever, probably the simplest thing is an arrow because you shoot an arrow, it goes across the street easily. Remember, on Shabbos, on Mesechta Shabbos, we learned that Minatori Yochayev for taking from Rishus Rabbim to Rishus Yachid, Akira and Hanacha, or vice versa, Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabbim, or Daladam to Rishus Rabbim. Those are all Doraisas. So let's say you shot an arrow from Rishus Rabbim and it went the distance of 4 amas, so you're Chayev for throwing or carrying something Rishus Rabbim Dalad amas. And while the arrow went through it tore somebody's shirt that happened to be hanging in Rishus Rabbim, you're potter from paying. Why? Now you might say, even though when I shot the arrow, it was 1 second, a second later it tore the garment, and then a second later it landed. So why are there, even Rav Abin says, if you throw it, you're potter from paying, even though it wasn't simultaneous. When you lift it up, in other words, in order to complete the action for it to land, you have to pick it up. Why do you say over here? You said over here, if I stole the chayla from somebody and then I ate it, so I'm potter. Let's say I stole it, picked it up, and then I ate it. I'm still not that I'm not potter because of kamarabna, even though it's kamarabna, even on Chiv D'Oraisa. But over here, I'm stealing it as one act. I have to pay for that. And eating it is another act. So he says, no, Rav Abin says that it's all one act, just like shooting an arrow in the street, even though when I shot it is one act, and when it landed, when it went through the shirts is another act. He says, no, that's all. Rav Abin says, you're potter because it's all together. You have to pick, in order to be chayiv on Shabbos, you need an akira and an. In order for it to land, I have to throw it, therefore it's considered one act. When I picked up the chaylev, how am I going to eat the chaylev? I have to pick it up and eat it. Okay, so picking it up is part of the act of eating it. You have to pick it up and eat it. Oh, you don't have to pick it up.
You don't have to eat it.
Yeah, you don't have to eat it. Okay, that's
right.
Put in the fridge, right? So so the Gemara wants to say that's going to be answered. The Gemara wants to say the Lachor says that Kamar Ramene doesn't apply when it's two separate acts. Over here, you see, even though it can be divided up into 2 acts. You don't say that. So he doesn't agree with Rav Abin. Lema pliga Rav. He disagrees with Rav Abin because Rav Abin says that's all one act and you're potter because of Kam Rabin. So again, how can you compare? Over there, you can't put down the arrow without picking it up. Here, there's 2 answers over here. One is you can eat it without picking it up. Picking it up, I acquired it. Therefore, I'm chayav to pay, even though I ate it a second later. Why? I could have eaten it without. I could have bent over and eaten it too. I didn't have to, and not required. In the case of the arrow, there's no way to get the arrow across the street. I wanted to shoot the arrow across the street. There's no way to do it without picking it up and shooting it. So it's all one act, and the shirt was torn in the middle of that one act. But over here, you can't say that lifting it up is a necessary part of eating it because you could eat it without lifting it up. You could bend over and eat it. And eating it means bending over, even within 3 tefachim of the ground is considered like the ground. So if you bend down and near the ground, that's good enough. And therefore, it's not necessary to lift it up. Inami, this is really what you're saying, Irving. Over there, when you shot the arrow, once you shot it, you can't get it back. You can't stop the act. It's one act because it's one act. But over here, you can stop. You can pick it up, like you say, and put it in the refrigerator. You don't have to pick it. You don't have to complete the act. You don't have to, and therefore it's not all one act. Over there, by the arrow, you can't get it back. You can stop. What's the difference between these 2? We gave 2 differences between them. One is that the lifting up is not part of the act of eating because you could eat it without lifting it up. And one answer is because in one case you could stop the act in the middle, in one case you cannot. Let's say you didn't shoot an arrow across the street, but you're walking with a knife and you're walking across the street. And as you walk across the street, you got a spear or a knife and you tear his shirt as you're walking across the street. The one who says it's impossible to put it down without lifting it up, it's the same thing, because you're walking across the street. There's no way to get across the street unless you throw it or even if you carry it. So therefore it's all one act. Right? It's impossible to put it down without picking it up. Right? Whether it's shooting the arrow or carrying the knife, in each cases, it's impossible to have a hanacha without lifting it up and taking it across the street. The one who says, "What? I can't take it back." You could stop, because you could stop before you get to the shirt. You could stop right there. Once you shoot the arrow, you can't stop. But in the case of the knife, you could stop. So according to the answer, we said that whether you could stop it or not. So here you could stop. So therefore, if you were carrying the knife across the street and you tore the shirt, if you say it's a kiranacha, based on a kiranacha, then it's one act and you'd be putter from tearing the shirt. But if the reason is because can you stop the act in the middle, here you could stop the act in the middle. So you could argue that I started walking with the knife and then I saw the shirt, I could have stopped that. I didn't stop. Therefore, it's two separate acts, and therefore I would have to pay for the shirt. All right, we're up to goof over here. Tomorrow's daf is on the podcast. Also, I think I forgot which goof we started from. I think it's from the top of the page. So we'll review the top of the page on the podcast also. And Sunday's daf, Islamic Base, is also on the podcast because obviously it's Tisha B'Av, we won't be learning. On Monday, Emir Hashem, we'll start on Daf Lamed Gimel from the 14th line. You look in the 14th line on Daf Lamed Gimel, such Rabbi Eliezer Omer. That's where the podcast will take you to, and that's where we'll pick it up on Sunday, Emir Hashem, from Eliezer Omer. Have a good Shabbos and an easy fast and a meaningful fast, everybody.
Amen. You too. Take care.